Hello and welcome to another episode of eBay Scavengers at ebayscavengers.com. This is episode number 64 and Mikey and I, Ryan, are talking about international shipping, which is a big topic. A lot of people have asked us about it, so we decided to do an episode about it.
So Ryan, I just want to ask you before we get into some of the nuances of international shipping, do you see anything difficult about shipping internationally now that you've been doing it for years? Is there anything that you're like, oh no, it's an international order, or oh, I gotta do this differently because it's international? Is there any hesitation you have about international?
No, not at all. And there are some tiny hesitations, and we'll talk about which ones they are, but eBay now has a global shipping program, which I think they started 8 months ago or something, and that has been a dream for me. I love it. So that'll be the first thing we talk about. But no, not really. I love shipping internationally. It's about 30% of my sales are international sales.
Got it. Well, why don't you tell us a little about your experience with global shipping and if you'd recommend it to newbies? And
the thing about eBay's global shipping program is what you do is you ship your item to their warehouse in Kentucky, and then they ship it out using whatever carrier makes sense. A lot of times it's FedEx, and they ship it out with full tracking and full insurance to your person overseas. Now, this is a wonderful solution because there had been some issues with international sales because there was minimal tracking on some of the sales, on some of the shipping options. So you're responsible for getting it to Kentucky safely. Now, after that, if it gets to the person broken, or if it never gets to them, that's eBay's responsibility because you can prove that you got it to the warehouse. So that to me is a wonderful thing for sellers.
so Ryan, when you ship to the warehouse in Kentucky, do you just send it in priority mail boxes? Like just anything you would do for domestic kind of shipping is all you use, right?
Yeah, priority mail. And I mean, you can use anything, priority, parcel, or first class. It doesn't matter as long as it gets there.
Got it. And what are some of the issues you've had with, I remember early on there was things where the buyers would see the price of some of the taxes they'd have to pay and shipping fees, and they would bulk at those numbers and ask for a refund. Has that changed at all?
There's two things. So the first thing I say to people when they're like, oh, what's up with this import charge? Because that's another part of global shipping is it gets your buyers to pay the import charge beforehand, not like when it gets to their country, because they don't want that kind of sticker shock to happen when the person gets the item. Like, why do I have to pay more to get this? Because depending on what country you're in, they're called VAT taxes, value added tax, or import charges, just different customs fees. I don't know if we really have that in the United States, but in Europe and the UK, they have it all over the place. But the beautiful thing is that for global shipping, they pay it up front. So I try to explain that to my customers if they're like, what's up with this import charge? And I just say, look, you're paying it up front, so this item just comes right to your door. You don't have to deal with customs or VAT tax or whatever. But there are times when someone's bought something and they don't want to pay those extra prices, and there is a workaround to do it. Basically, you have to call eBay to ask them, but they will tell you how to take global shipping off certain items so that you can just get a payment for regular mail.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Now, you said there are a couple of things that you were concerned about when you use global shipping, like some things that send up a flag for you on occasion. Is that the countries they're going to, or?
Well, so there are limitations to the global shipping program. There are country limitations. There's certain countries that it doesn't go to yet. There's a whole list on eBay that I'll link to in the blog post. But there are also certain categories that they don't cover, like glass and pottery. They don't cover that for obvious reasons because they're breakable. But the weird thing is I have listed certain like delicate items, like pottery items, under like kitchenware, not in like the glass or pottery section, just because I wasn't thinking. And they've actually been sold to a global shipping buyer. So I have sold delicate items if they're in the right category. that just happened by accident. So you can kind of like work the system that way where you're like, okay, I'm not going to put this in glass and pottery. I'm going to put it in like kitchen baking items. And then that can be sold through
Gotcha.
global shipping. You know what I mean?
In the old days, I used to use First Class International. I first became an eBayer like 18 months ago. I'd use First Class International for a lot of our stuff going overseas because it wasn't that valuable. They would be like $25, $35 items. I had a ton of problems. And I think you used this for a while too, pre-global shipping and before we kind of had enough issues. But First Class International is still something eBay offers for shipping, and it's very cheap, up to £4, but it is so slow and unreliable, I had to stop using it entirely. Do you still use it at all?
You know, I do use it on certain items, like lower priced items. It kind of defaults to my older listings. If the country isn't covered, like I think I sold something to someone in Norway today. It was a piece of clothing, actually. And so I don't know if Norway isn't covered right now. But yeah, it was like First Class International for like a $60 jacket. And I'm like, oh God, I don't want to send it first class, but that's what they paid for. The one upside is right now that eBay has added this tracking program called eDelcon, which I think is like a third-party tracking for international. So I'm hoping, like,
Gotcha.
I need to check things that I just shipped out when I got home to see if those things are giving me full tracking, because that's the thing that covers you is tracking.
Absolutely. So I've chosen not to do the First Class International because it was just too much kind of maintenance from user support, because we would get buyers that would buy that way. I couldn't point at tracking that was reliable, and they would write in, 3 days after the item shipped to Japan or something it's going to take 3 to 6 weeks to get there.
Right.
I just find the buyers had a different expectation, and I just had to stop using it because of that.
So your alternative is to do priority flat rate. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so when the padded flat rate envelope came out, and I'm not sure how long that one has been around. Is that less than 2 years that envelope's been available?
Yeah, less than a year and a half, I think.
Yeah, so it's a relatively recent thing that there's a padded flat rate envelope, but padded flat rate works domestically, and internationally I think they'll let you do up to £4 in it, and it is awesome because it's a great bubble wrap kind of package, and it's only $24 to ship anywhere in the world. In fact, Canada is a little cheaper. I think it's only like $18.99 or something, but it is amazing to use that or a small flat rate box because it is a much shorter printout. It's only a single page for the international shipping. You don't have to sign 4 pages on every item, and you can add insurance to it in some cases. Tracking might not be as good as some other items, but it is kind of been good enough for me that at least people have something to follow, and the items tend to get anywhere in the world in about 2 weeks. So it's been a pretty reliable thing for me, and I've had a lot less buyer support mails to deal with. Do you use that at all, or are you just completely global shipping?
Yeah, I'm trying to, like that item that I sold to Norway today, that it was actually a thin jumpsuit. I stuffed it in a padded flat rate because I was like, okay, they paid, $24 for first class, so I might as well just put it in priority, put insurance on it, and have tracking.
Yeah, you'll feel a lot better about that, just having something to point to. And like I think I've said on our previous What's Happening in Your Store This Week episode, I had a great experience with an item that went to France, and it never made it to the person, but I had enough tracking and other stuff that PayPal kind of let me slide and favored the case towards me, even though it wasn't complete delivered because the user never escalated the case. I was able to keep the user at bay by just having enough tracking information, and it turned out to be a $60 fee I didn't have to eat.
That's great. Is the tracking full tracking with international? Does it actually mark it as delivered?
I think it depends on the country. I can't tell. In this case, the item was never delivered, so it's a terrible example because it didn't say delivered and the user never got their item. I think usually I do see a delivered mark on it and that it is complete priority tracking.
Oh, that's great. That's so good. That's so much better than first class international, where the tracking generally ended in the United States.
Yeah, and so my recommendation is someone who's new to international shipping and is just starting to turn it on their items in the store. I would say as much as you can, use a padded flat rate envelope or get involved in the global shipping program, because at least you'll get your stuff covered either by eBay or by the post office so that you don't have cases opening up against you. And I would say avoid at all costs first class international, because it's cheap, but it is going to be a headache.
Yeah, and your customers will generally say, can you just send it the cheapest, like first class, whatever, standard? And I guess you can, but, you're taking a risk. So I just try to explain it to people either through global shipping or a flat rate. Just, hey, this is better. It's better for both of us because we can track it and it's insured. Just tell people why it's better. Or if they don't want to do that and want to do cheaper shipping, then maybe that's not a good customer for you.
Right. And I think it's important to remember, we keep saying the word like risk and other things like that involved with international shipping. It's because you're not only have this $30 item, which is our general average item value anyway. You don't have just this item, but you're looking at probably $20 to $30 in shipping. So it really is a risk when things get lost, because you're refunding the cost of the item plus shipping. So you're taking serious hits on international if you don't have some way to cover yourself.
Right.
So.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. So let's talk about shipping through regular priority international, which would be in any other priority mailbox besides a small flat rate and a padded flat rate.
Right. So that would be the medium flat rates and large flat rate, or even just a cardboard box with a priority label on it. So I ship those quite a bit for bigger items. And I think that one thing that I really like with shipping, these end up being like a 4-page label kind of thing, one for the sender to keep as a copy and 3 pages that are supposed to go for customs to access. I would say if you don't have them already, the plastic covers make it a lot easier. Do you use those, Ryan?
Yeah, you can get these plastic covers from the USPS store, or you can get them in person at your post office. I mean, I don't know what you would do without them, because like Mikey said, it takes 2 pieces of paper cut in half. Like, you wouldn't use a sticky label, you use like regular paper for these ones. Cut them in half, you have to sign all 4 and date all 4, and then you put them in this plastic cover that sticks to your box. So those are essential. Either order them online or you can ask at the post office for a handful.
Right, and they're free at through the USPS.com website. I forget the exact name for them, but they're the plastic international covers. And that's all you're supposed to use them for. Don't use them for domestic or anything else.
Yeah, I think it says it on them, like only for use for, international USPS priority, or it's a federal offense.
Right. So something else with international that we really have to touch on, just to be clear, is if you're going to add international to your store, and you should open it up to international customers, make sure you're printing your labels. I mean, that's really the first step. If you're not already printing labels, like, you got to get on top of that, because you cannot show up at the post office and try to do a bunch of international shipping labels. It's really just too much time. It's not fair to the other people in line. It's not fair to the people at the post office. It actually can take you 20 minutes of form to fill these out because they're that long. So you really need to let eBay help you with some of this work and just print everything online in terms of international labels. I think you'd agree with that, Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they take more time in general because, like, for me, I have to change out my paper tray because I usually just print on sticky labels, and then you have to cut them in half. I sign each one, date each one, and then I actually use a highlighter on the address. And then what I do on top of that for actually any international, I print their name and address and their phone number if they've provided it on another piece of paper really large, and I highlight that and I tape it to the box just in case if anything happened to the customs label, it gets lost, it gets scratched, then there's another copy of their address on the box.
Yep. Gotcha. That's a great idea to have that extra information. So I've had a problem with international shipping ever since I've started using it, and that is the addresses are crazy.
Yeah.
When you're shipping something to Thailand, you will get an address that is so long, it looks like someone dropped a dictionary on the address and all the words leaked out. It is so incredible. And eBay has some real limitations to the length of address you can use. So I spend all my time trying to shorten these 90 letter long addresses into something that is, that'll fit for the printing label. And it can be a challenge sometimes.
The odd thing is you would think that eBay would require the person to put it on 2 lines because there's 2 address lines that you can use. And so what we end up doing, which I'm assuming you're saying this too, is, I'll take half the address and put it on the second line because I don't want to assume that I don't need some of the address. But it's odd that that's not automated by the system. It's
amazing that eBay's not filtering down and requiring the users to use a shorter address. But they don't. And that address shortening is sort of part of the reality of shipping internationally. And, sometimes you just take the word street and lower it to the letters ST. And simple things like that. Apartment spelled out becomes APT. Some of the obvious shortening that you can do to shrink it down. Another issue I've had, and this is certainly the case if you go to the post office too, is you'll get some crazy address in Russia. You're not really sure what's the city and what's the province. It's hard to tell the difference for some of these because they'll use multiple names that you've never heard of. And I often resort to Wikipedia to try to figure out where this is going.
That's so funny because I've done that also with Google Maps where I'll look at their address and just be like, I just want to make sure that this is a real address because it doesn't look real to me. And sometimes it isn't. So that's a flag for maybe you want to contact your customer and say, hey, I just want to confirm this address, which is good for you in a way, because then if something happens and they said, it never got to me, you didn't put the right address, you can say, hey, you confirm this address, and it says it in eBay messages.
Right, exactly. Yeah, make sure that goes through eBay messages so you can always point at that later. So sometimes you just get addresses that are so shady, and I don't know where the street, city, province, how to break out any of it. So at that point, it might be appropriate to talk to the user. So Ryan, in the past, there was an issue where express mail started to get blocked to several countries. There was some little hack people were doing in Russia, and they got cut off for a while, and I think priority got turned off for a little while. Has that changed recently?
Yes, I believe that they turned priority mail back on for Russia because I was able to print a priority mail to Russia just yesterday. However, I could not put insurance on it.
I've noticed for a lot of international countries, I cannot do insurance.
Oh, really? So there are other countries too?
Yeah. I can't name them out. I think, the UK and, typical countries that buy, UK and Australia that buy from us a lot, it's no big deal. But I've had problems in the past with many countries trying to do insurance.
And that's for priority.
Yeah, it's for priority using USPS insurance. So maybe using, what's the other one, ShipMail?
ShipCover, yep.
ShipCover. So ShipCover might be a little more generous on some of those countries. I forget.
And now ShipCover, I think USPS goes up to $5,000 and ShipCover only goes up to $1,000. Now that's just if you're shipping something very expensive, which is kind of our next topic.
Yeah, so shipping the uber expensive item is something I learned about and have talked about in the last few episodes about trying to ship items over $2,500 and how there is a electronic export information, like an extra form you have to fill out. So it's called an EEI. And they want to see proof that you filed it. So that's called a PFC, and then you get this international transaction number, an ITN. So shipping high-value items over $2,500, you have more forms to fill out. And if you don't, and make the mistake I did, they will send the customs, U.S. Customs, will send the item back to you. And all of your international shipping fees, you get to eat. So that kind of sucked for me to deal with, but at least I know now that anything leaving the country over $2,500 is more forms.
Now, those forms, you said there's the EEI, which is electronic export information, the proof of filing citation, which means the proof that you just filled out that other form, and then the international transaction number. Now, can you print those online, or do you have to go to the post office for those?
So my experience was eBay blocked me when I went to go ship something over $2,500 internationally. They're like, oh, that's too much. There's extra stuff you have to do. So they just kind of turn it off right there. eBay says, we're out. We don't want to be involved. So I ended up going through USPS. I ended up going through UPS and shipping that way successfully. You could do it through stamps.com. You can do it through, I think, the USPS.com website. You can fill out one of these. It's really just one form, and that gives you the proof that you filled it out and the transaction number, and then customs will let it through. So I think it's just one form, but there's all these acronyms around doing the activity.
So when you went through UPS, did you do that on stamps.com, or did you just go in person to the UPS store?
Okay, so UPS, I went to their website. I went to the UPS website and filled out everything there, addresses of where it's going and declared value. And they automatically take care of generating the proof of filing and the transaction number and all that export information they take care of. I think through the post office, I've never had the successful experience of doing this through the post office, but I think you can do it through the USPS.com website. You can print out that extra form and attach it. You would put it inside the clear plastic cover for international shipping along with the appropriate priority or express mail priority shipping label.
Right.
So you would just throw in this proof that you filled out these extra forms. It's just a form declaring it even further. It's really not a big deal, but I missed it and it was expensive, and I really had no idea. Had you ever heard of this limit before, Ryan?
I've never heard of this limit. No, the most expensive thing I've sold was my Bakelite necklace. It was $1,300, and I mailed it to China. So I did have to fill out some of these things. I remember because I did express mail. So that made even more trouble. I don't know. It was insane. The people at the post office were like, we've never done this before. They looked at me like I had three heads. And so I don't know if it's because I hit that limit. I didn't hit the $2,500 limit, but I was using express mail, which turned out to not be a great thing because my very expensive item, got to China in 2 days, which was great. But then it was stuck in customs for 7 days.
And that's the reality. It's going to be stuck in customs for several days.
Right. So you might as well just use Priority Mail International.
Yeah, I totally agree. Don't use express mail unless the customer demands it or something. But it's probably going to take several more days than you would like. And really, I don't see express mail making up for the customs time.
Right, and they don't guarantee it. People say, oh, express mail, it's guaranteed, 2 days international. But if you read the fine print, not if it gets stuck in customs, which most of the time it will. So what's the reason for using it?
Express mail is also not guaranteed on a per country basis. So if you want to ship to Israel, Israel, we don't cover express mail. It's guarantees. So, while Australia and England might be easy, it's actually kind of hard for some other countries. So it's not a guarantee everywhere. I've just found it's not worth the extra dollars, unfortunately. So I think that's our roundup on some tips around international shipping. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
I just think it's good that people ship internationally. It is risky, but, with global shipping, and if you're shipping things that can fit in flat rate priority, you're doing pretty good. It's not a bad thing to do.
Yeah, you got a lot more eyes on your product, and you'll show up on the other eBay sites, the eBay UK and AU and all these other sites, which is great. That's a lot of people looking at your items. It's
better because a lot of people don't sell internationally. So if you have an item that is the only one being sold internationally, I've found that I can price some things a little bit higher because I'm like, you know what? No one else is selling this product internationally. So a lot of times I'll even put it right up top in the title, like ships internationally, if I'm competing with other people.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. So one thing that I would add to this is that occasionally there's a country that is doing amazing. like just blowing up financially, where people are just so super employed and have, great work. And for years it was Australia, although that's slowed down quite a bit from what it used to be. When there is a country that's doing uber well, they buy stuff and they love buying from the U.S. at that point. So it is exciting when we have a real like winner country come up that's economy is just doing great. Is there anyone you'd say is in that state right now, Ryan?
Like you said, Australia was really great. I haven't had a lot of sales from Australia lately, but then again, I'm on global shipping, so I don't immediately see where people are from unless I kind of dig into the info. I get a lot of European customers, a lot of people in the UK, a ton of people in Canada, Brazil. Brazil is an up and coming economy that I've noticed as well.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. It has been picking up a bit down there. One thing I'll add as well, sorry to keep dragging this out, but it is nice to work with the other hemisphere because their weather is opposite our weather.
Yes.
So while we can pick up fur coats at summer yard sales for nothing in North America, Australia can't wait to have them because it's the middle of winter down there.
Yep, I totally agree with that. I love that. It's so funny. In the middle of the summer, you're selling all these sweaters to Australia and, also Brazil. You're just like, all right, this is awesome.
Yeah, so international shipping can be like the perfect complement to your eBay inventory. All right, well, thanks, Ryan. That was another fun episode of shipping. So international shipping, you should add it to your store. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks. Bye.